Lindsay Shepherd, you're quite the celebrity. How's celebrity status treating you?
Oh, I don't feel like I'm a celebrity.
Yeah, well,
I,
you're,
I,
you're almost a household name in North America, at least.
yeah, and it's nice to be like in the niche of like free speech and stuff like that. Yeah.
So you're on the right side.
I think so. Yeah. I think it's important to have current students as, like role models at least, right? Because like what was touched on in the talk, students are afraid of their marks. They're afraid of speaking out because there are consequences. You can find yourself, targeted.
When I went to university in the before time, I had absolutely no problem of speaking out, and everybody spoke out, and we had lively discussions in our philosophy classes, in our psychology classes. What you're telling us is actually, it's chilling.
Yes. And so someone in there brought up how there's this environment of safety and comfort for the students, and you should never be made to feel uncomfortable. And what I wanted to say but didn't have a chance to is this actually connects to just university marketing. Is it really about critical thinking and classroom discussions anymore? No, like what they want to get out to students for recruitment is all the opportunities. You can live in a residence building, you can have fun. There's lots of job opportunities after. You can do a co-op program. You can be engaged. This is the word they use. This was my degree is from Simon Fraser. They were called like the engaged university. You can volunteer. There's all these opportunities to have a fun student life. So it's almost like it's not really about the intellectual environment anymore. It's about the social environment.
That's an amazing perspective, that you're thinking that perhaps all of this left wing, if I could call it that, we'll get into that in a second, talk is designed to promote a university and market a university.
I think so. It's kind of neoliberal in a way, even though they always bash neoliberalism, corporatism and all that.
Our radio show is called Just Right, and our tagline is not right wing, just right.
All right.
And you came out early on in this as a left winger. Then you put out a video just a couple of months ago wherein you say that you are no longer a left winger. And one of the phrases you used, or the reasons that you said you're no longer a left wingers, you described the left as wanting to make the world boring. Now, Bob and I probably would have said that, used the word egalitarianism, everybody the same, no differences. But I love that expression of boring. You want to elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, so one of my principles is I just want to let people do what they want to do, as long as it's not hurting anybody, right? And I mean really hurting anybody. So, if I want to host a talk with the far-right personality Faith Goldie, which my group at Laurier did try to do, just let us do it. And if no one shows up and it's a complete failure, well, then that'll show for itself. Well, no, we had a lineup of 300 people wanting to come to that talk. It was shut down by fire alarm by, these radical activists. Again, they want to ruin people's fun. It's fun for people to go to an outing, see a speaker, get a chance to ask a question at the end. That's fun. But no, they just have to shut it down because it's something they don't like. So they have to have control over it. So they won't let anybody else do what they want to do. And that's fundamentally against my principles. I want to let people do what they want to do. That's why I think they should have their social justice events. Sometimes I attend those events just to see what they're like. And even the right wing sometimes has too much discourse about, moral purity and there's too much gay marriage or whatever. I don't know. I don't believe that that's wrong. I just want to let people do what they want to do. Right?
So you're more or less a classical liberal.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Labels mean a lot to people, and when we misuse them or don't understand them, I think that's when a lot of confrontation begins. And we just listened to a questioner in the discussion at the SAFS meeting, Frances, say that she's a socialist and she doesn't particularly like being called left wing because all these people are being called left wing, and now she's being grouped in with all these.
Right wing. She doesn't want to be called right wing.
Well, she's a socialist,
yes.
But everybody's calling all these agitators left wingers, and
Okay.
she's not an agitator, so she saying that they're not left wingers.
Yeah.
I'm a left winger as a
Yes.
socialist. These aren't left wingers, they're right wing or have more in common with right wingers. than anybody else. Can you define for us, because we talk about this all the time on the show, what your impression of what it means to be left-wing and right-wing are?
Yeah, it's almost hard because it's in flux, like currently, like the way I see it. And a lot of people have made the argument, just don't even bother with those labels anymore, because you actually might find that some of your opinions are far right, some are far left, some are center. But I would see the left, I agree with them insofar as like socially progressive policies. Like I believe in having welfare. I believe in safe injection sites. I believe in Canada's healthcare system, socialized medicine, things like that. That is all stuff that I would have in common with them. But what's becoming definitive of the left is, like I explained in my video, like, yes, the totalitarianism of suppressing discourse and how they think they're in control. And so, yeah, I agree with Francis on that, is that's, they are co-opting the discourse of the left, but actually being very fascist themselves. So they are trying to make society boring, and you brought up egalitarianism. That makes society boring in a lot of ways. How far are you going to go with limiting competition, limiting personal responsibility, and things like this? What would I define the right as? Probably, my impression originally, before all this, was they're anti-environment, pro-corporate, want lower taxes, free markets. But the thing is, there's so many divides even in the right. So you also have like a sect of the right who hate the corporatism, and they're actually pro-environment. They want to live on a farm. They want everyone to leave them alone, And that could be maybe more libertarian. But all that to say is I think it's still in flux. And
Would it be correct to say that there are so many different, for want of a better word, sects within these ideologies, left and right, that it's the labels sometimes get in the way unless you're very explicit about how you define left and right?
I suppose so, but I mean, what, for example, Frances was saying how she hates being called a right-winger. Maybe just deal with it. It's like people were calling me a right-winger, and at first that's why I put out a message that said, I am a leftist. I'm not trying to advance any right-wing agenda, because people were accusing me of that. And it's like, I guess if you're a leftist, you might react kind of viscerally to being called something you don't see yourself as. But now I take the approach of like, I don't care what you call me. All that matters is I know what I am. Right?
It disturbs me with one of the questions after your speech that you said that you might get your PhD. You'll find a professor to help you with your PhD, but you don't see good prospects of getting employed with your PhD. I cannot believe that this kind of pressure is treating you that way. It's absolutely disgusting. What do you see yourself doing after your PhD, or if you get it?
Yeah, I'm still leaving it pretty open, and I want to leave it open because I kind of maybe want to fill a gap that would be needed to be filled. So, for example, the journalist who broke my story, Christy Blatchford, we really need people like her in journalism. Barbara Kay, Jonathan Kay.
They're one of the good ones, or three of the good ones right there.
Yeah, and they're all they're not my age, Who is my age, part of my generation, is going to fill that? I don't know.
We went to a Jordan Peterson event here at the University of Western Ontario last year, and it was attended by, it was a full attendance. Hundreds of people turned out, all, if you want to use the word millennials, all from your cohort. And they were all well-dressed, well-behaved, and gave him a standing ovation. And he's receiving the same welcome throughout the world right now, pushing his book. Does that not give you hope for your generation that this will subside, this nonsense from these privilege seekers, as Francis called them?
Well, the thing is, yes, he has a great following, and yet what you've described is awesome. But still, institutionally, what's happening is, I'm not necessarily against affirmative action, but they want to hire marginalized people, which, again, I'm not against that, but
except now that you're marginalized.
the thing is, like, when you start to fill all the jobs with radical people, and a lot of them they're really radical people who you know, there's been cases on Twitter of TAs, for example, so people in the same position as I was, saying like, ha ha ha, I always call on the white males last in class. It's like, I guess at least you're being honest about it, but you know, if we imagine education being taken over by that, that's really dismaying. That's not really acceptable. But, you know, and as for, to go back to what you said about not being hireable, the thing is, a lot of these departments, so for example, communication studies, my department, cultural analysis and social theory, which is interdisciplinary, they're kind of like cults. Yeah, I would use that word. They behave like cults. Yes, they, you know, for example, so in communication studies at Laurier, a very high percentage of the faculty are interested in like queer, transgender, non-binary, sexual identity, gender identity things. Okay, well, you know, I guess that means that if you don't research those things, or you are not of that identity yourself, what is your chance of getting hired in that department? So I just kind of worry a bit about kind of the hire people like us kind of mentality. It's a little bit worrying for me.
Well, we both wish you well, and certainly do hope you get hired, and we look forward to hearing your saga continue for the better.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.